Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I'm Brian Emhauser. We have a very fun episode this morning on this bye week for the Seattle Seahawks, the 5-2, tied for NFC leading Seattle Seahawks off this week. But we got a couple guests, and the first one is a returning guest, one of our favorites, Coach Cody Alexander of MatchQuarters.com, Field Vision Sports. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Seahawks defense and especially Nick Emmanwori. At 8:30, we've got another guest coming on, and I'll let you know, it is going to be a drastic change from the first half to the second half. We'll have comedian Dustin Nickerson joining the show, so we'll talk to him at 8:30. Mr. Alexander, Coach Alexander, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday?
Doing good. As I told you before we came on here, I'm still trying to figure out the conversion from Central Time to Pacific Time. So
I feel your pain, man. I like trying to talk to different guests, and I never know whether to transfer it to their time. There's sometimes that like Central, like Mountain Time doesn't actually change, and then it does. And we're like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I actually do like an executive coaching with a woman in New Zealand. I coach her on doesn't even matter, but like trying to make an appointment with her, it's impossible. I just tell her, like, you tell me what time to put it on my calendar and I will do that, because I can't figure it out, man. So it's been a while since we've talked, and one of the things you and I spoke about when the Seahawks drafted Nick Emmanwori was this idea of big nickel, and we were even joking, like, Nick,
right,
big nickel, right? Hey, it all works, love it. They played him 71 out of 76 snaps against the Texans, and he was running downfield with Jalen Noel, a 4.3 40 slot receiver. So Mike Macdonald yesterday said he's just kind of the nickel. I'd love to get we're going to talk about all sorts of things, but I want to start there. What are you seeing from this 21-year-old rookie in the NFL so far?
Well, that was always the thing with him in the draft, was that he played deep safety. He played coverage. I mean, this is coming from a system in South Carolina that played a lot of man match, meaning that even though they're playing zone, they're still matching up. It's very match heavy. If you run a vertical at him, he's going to have to carry it down. His length, and I think what helps him out too is that, think about the length that Seattle has in that corner room too as well. You have Witherspoon, you have Reek Woolen. He's seeing guys on a daily basis that he's like, okay, I can do those same things. I can learn from these guys. It's not like he's surrounded by a bunch of 5'10" corners, and they're completely different in their technique as well. So I'm pleasantly surprised with it. That's always one of those things. You don't always get a Kyle Hamilton who can have really loose hips at 6'3", 6'4", or Reek Woolen. So again, another alien in the secondary for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, and I was very excited about Nick Emmanwori, not only because of how he tested at the combine, but two other things. One, there's kind of this confidence that I've seen in like a quiet confidence in the great players, and you see it even as early in the combine or just conversations. When I was talking to Nick at the combine, and I asked him about like what he expected to run the next day, he was like, I'm going to run 4.3, and it wasn't a boast. It wasn't he's just like, that's what I'm going to do. And the first time he definitely didn't. You rarely see the next time be faster than the first.
Mm-hmm.
He pulled it off. He hit a 42-inch vertical. This guy he has a quiet confidence that to me I've seen in the greats. And then the other is people are like, oh, he's like Obi Melifanu. I can't remember the exact name, the Raiders guy. All these athletic traits, but not a player. And I'm like, this guy was an All-American. What are we talking about? Like, This guy was a football player. So there was a lot of skepticism about whether he could transition and be a useful NFL player. I'm curious, as someone who's an expert in that, where were you on that scale, and what are you seeing that either matched your expectations or is different?
Well, the coverage aspect has really been something I really wanted to see, because covering in college is a lot different than covering athletes. Even in the SEC is covering athletes at the NFL level. Remember, every NFL team has NFL players. Not every SEC team has 22 on both starting positions NFL players. So seeing that transition has been really well. I think people forget this is a South Carolina team that plays really good defense and has played really good defense really for the past couple of years. So this is not just, I think South Carolina is one of those that you hear like a Kentucky or Vanderbilt this year, or just, oh, well, they had a good year, or, they're just kind of one of the other SEC teams. This is a team that has had really good talent on that defense. He's one of them. He was an All-American. He produced at the SEC level. That's why too, like I look at somebody that was in the same draft as like with Atlanta, the Xavier Watts kid come from Notre Dame. I never understood why he fell, other than he looks like a corner sometimes. Like, he's not as big as you would think. So I think we've seen this from larger players or taller players at the position, where they look really nice in the underwear Olympics, but does it translate at the NFL level? And you can't just always say, well, he's the next Kyle Hamilton, because, well, there's only one of those guys. So, and that's not necessarily fair to him. And I think people have kind of gone on and on of these bigger guys, like Jeremy Chin's another great example of, man, small school player, freak athlete, but he looks like a linebacker trying to cover in man-to-man coverage. And so that's really one of the things that you don't really know until you get in. And then when you saw it, it was like, okay, this makes sense. And he's also got Mike Macdonald, who's kind of basically a defensive savant. So I totally trust what's going on in Seattle.
Well, you bring up some of the comps. Some people immediately talked about Cam Chancellor because, they even had the same coach. And I talked to Nick about that. Some people talk about Kyle Hamilton because Mike Macdonald had him in Baltimore. I know Nick's favorite player to watch is Derwin James. I'm not sure if he's any of those guys. He seems maybe to be his own guy, but I'm curious, of those players, which of them do you feel like might be closest to what he can become?
Yeah, I think Derwin James is a great one. I think Kyle Hamilton athletically, that's a different level. I also think he's big. He's a little bit bigger than Kyle Hamilton. I think size-wise, Derwin James is probably the best comp for him, and probably why he looks at somebody like that. He's massive. He is a big human being, and for him to be able to run with receivers is a really big deal. Because we've had this, like the Isaiah Simmons from Clemson is kind of the first one that I think people really wanted this guy to just be, just this alien playing on. How are you able to play every position just because of that size? Look, he's 6'4", 220 pounds. You should not be able to move like that. And he does. And so I think, to me, the comp probably is a Derwin James, where you can play box safety, you can play that nickel, but you're not giving up anything in the blitz game, in the run game, or in pass coverage. He can really be that nickel for you. And like you said, Macdonald's like, well, I think we just found our nickel, which I think helps down, because Witherspoon, I think, playing outside with that, like we've talked about this at length, having Witherspoon and Woolen outside with that length, this is going to be a problem for years to come in the NFL, because that secondary, it doesn't matter who you have at receiver. They can match up with anybody, and that's a problem.
Well, I'm really interested to hear more about that, because, Devon Witherspoon has been one of the best nickels in the game. And there's a lot of folks that would say part of what's made him a great player in the NFL is not only his proximity to the line of scrimmage, but playing tight to the formation so he can be available as a blitzer and he can be available as a run defender. And some folks are like, I don't know if he's going to be as good on the boundary. Are you losing some of what makes him great? I've kind of been curious about, they started keying on him as a blitzer, and his pass rush was not as noticeable last year. Maybe Mike Macdonald's got more toys to play with now. So, like, how do you see use of Devon Witherspoon now?
Well, I think being able to play in your dime versus some of these 12 personnel formations is kind of a cheat code, because now teams on early downs can't do that. I've talked to several NFL coaches of like, if we can get to where we can play dime, on regular downs, we kind of can cheat the system. Now it's all going to be predicated on, can the D line hold up in the run game and kind of basically play gap and a half and be able to change the math up front, which if you look at what Seattle did in the offseason, that's what they went to do. You go and you get a guy like Tank Lawrence, who is a really good run-stopping defensive end. You've got 2 interior guys who are really difficult to block, and then you kind of have that rotational piece at edge. And so I think that's really what that boils down to is you're really not changing. I call it schematic fluidity, is that they're not running different plays. They're just giving different presentations and different packages. And I think for fans that may not understand, when you present a certain package, there's a laundry list of things that the offense feels like they can do against that package. And so when you can present a bunch of different things, it can really throw off some of these very curated call sheets by a lot of these guys. And so now you change the game plan and you kind of create a bottleneck in plays of what these guys can do. And that's what you can do with something like that. I think Job becoming a really good corner in 2025, I have to admit, not something, not something that I saw happening, but all it does is, like you said, it adds pieces. And if they feel like, hey, we can leave him to the field, we've got Woolen to the boundary, and we can keep Emmanwori and Witherspoon at nickel and dime, and we can hold up, I think that's going to be a problem when you go down the schedule against some of these teams like a Rams that want to play 12 personnel, but they also want to pass out of it a lot. The 49ers are another one where, hey, we're going to use a bunch of hybrid. All these guys are hybrids. Yeah, we're in 21 personnel, but we can be in empty. We can be in 11 personnel. We can be in 10. And that, to me, gives them more answers. And so to me, when you look at the NFC West, they're perfectly set up to answer those problems. And then, hey, guess what? When we play the Eagles in the playoffs, if that's who we end up against, we can play that. We can get into that. They run, spread to run system. So I think you have matchups against teams in the division that now you have more ammo in that to go against these guys.
Oh man, you're getting me excited. This is the 8:15 in the morning and I'm already getting geeked. Who needs coffee, man? This is great. Coach Cody Alexander from matchquarters.com. So I hadn't thought as much about the dime situation. So you're talking about essentially a situation where you've got Job and Woolen both as boundary corners, and you've got Spoon and Nick Emmanwori on the field as well. All 4 of those guys on the field at once. And I assume in that situation, you're talking about Ernest Jones being the only linebacker on the field, right? So, and you'd have Kobe Bryant and Julian Love. My goodness, like that. So one of the things that comes to mind there, Cody, is that last year the Rams played, I think the second most dime of any team in the NFL. And they were able to largely hold up in that situation against the run. The Seahawks this year have been playing a bunch of nickel and I think more dime, and they're dominating against the run. They're the only team that's playing a top 5 light box percentage and are holding teams to under 4.4 yards per carry. They're actually holding teams to like 3.1 yards per carry. So in those situations. So talk about the combination of like what you have to have on the front in order to be able to even have a secondary play and dime like that.
Yeah, you have to win. So the Rams are very interesting because they had what they called it their cheetah package. So they wanted to play a lot of 5 down linemen. So they're a little bit of an outlier. One of the teams last year that I think a lot of people looked to in terms of light box usage was the Chargers. And what they ended up doing with Poona Ford, who's now with the Rams, and then Tier Tart, was we're going to play with 2 noses. We're going to stack them on the guards, and we're essentially going to have 2 guys waste 3 blockers. And then we've got 2 edges that we feel like can attack the tackles. You go and look at this Seattle roster. I mentioned it with Murphy and Williams inside. I think they can handle 3 guys. You're going to have to use 3 guys to handle both of those players now. And then now you have Tank Lawrence, who I've mentioned is really good against the run as well. So they've been doing some really nice things with having like Williams and Lawrence on the same side. That's a lot of exterior pressure you're building this huge wall. And so I think that to me has been something that I've seen Seattle do. And what that does is if we can waste five of these offensive linemen with 4, we've changed the math, and now we can match up better and we can use those light boxes. We already know Emmanwori is not just going to get pushed around in the box, and you can do things to where he's not in the A gap. I think that's the other thing too, is like people are like, oh, well, what about the A gap? Like, oh, he's going to have to be in the box. It's like, not really. You can do different things with stunting the line, which that's something that Duarte has been doing since Quinn, since he was with the Cowboys. So that's nothing new there. So you can do different things to mitigate that, but we know Witherspoon is really good near the box and around it. And so what you're doing is you're just amplifying your best 11 players. And that's really the goal, right? Is I want to play the best 11. When we talk about dime, when everybody's healthy and everybody's back, when we talk about dime, that's probably your best 11.
Wow. Well, we talked a little bit about Byron Murphy as well, another youngin, another 23-year-old in this group. And his development this year, it seems to have been a huge step for this defense. So you've already got Leonard Williams, who's been playing at, defensive player of the year kind of level for now a couple of years. What has Byron Murphy meant for how this defense is coming together?
Well, you need a nose. We saw this. The Rams, they kind of figured out we probably need to get a nose. What do? They went and got Poona Ford, right? You see this with another team that is having a little bit of success against the run is the Panthers. Well, what did they do? They kind of went and reshuffled that. They get Derek Brown back. They reshuffled their D line. So you need a nose in the game. That position has never left, especially on early downs. And being able to occupy the center and a guard and force these double teams and then be able to defeat them and be able to still be active and a force within that is something that you want. It's like the force multiplier, right? Like if I can change the math up front, everything, it just trickles backwards and it alleviates a lot of the pressure on these early downs backwards. And the whole thing of defense is we want to win early downs, because if we win early downs and we're getting them in 3rd and long, I'm starting to see, and it's nice to see this on broadcasts, they're starting to show the average 3rd down length. Now, they're not necessarily explaining it every time, but if that thing is not 3rd and 5 or closer, that's tough. There's not a lot of play calls that you can get in 3rd and 7, and you really the pendulum has swung to the defensive side. And so if I can win early downs and do things this way and have my best 11, that's what Murphy brings to you. And same with Williams on the interiors, that interior pressure, which is controlling that run game.
Well, and you mentioned Tank Lawrence a couple of times now, and there's another not quite an old head, but an older player in Uchenna Nwosu who came back toward the middle of this season so far, I think about week 3. And the two of them combined have seemingly really transformed the edge rush for this team. And I'm kind of curious what you're seeing, because we talked about Derek Hall and Boye Mafe, and can they take the next step? They both have played well, but it's really been the veteran edge players that seem to be taking over in Seattle.
Well, the thing with Tank, you have to remember with Lawrence, is that the Cowboys protected Micah every single time. So Lawrence was not necessarily isolated on a tackle or isolated in a sense where he's getting that one-on-one and he's able to rush. What they're doing now, and I'm seeing this, is that they believe in Nwosu and that he can kind of get his own thing going. But then they're also stacking, like I said, Williams and Lawrence on the same side. Well, that's allowing Lawrence now to have these one-on-ones and really go after the pass rusher when it is a pass. He's not the setup man anymore. And that's one of the things that you have to understand is when you have an elite rusher like a Micah Parsons in Dallas, because I know that was one of the concerns, is like, well, we're getting a guy that just doesn't have a lot of sack numbers. Well, I'm watching it and I'm seeing what they're doing, and they're giving him an opportunity by putting Williams in a 3 technique over the guard, or putting him in a 4 and widening everything out and really allowing him to attack these tackles, getting some movement. And now you're seeing those sack production numbers go up. So that's one of the things that you have as a fan that you don't necessarily know, that a lot of times there's a setup guy. And a lot of times these guys just don't have the freedom to just do whatever they want. And for in Dallas, a lot of it was manufactured for Micah to get a lot of these pressures. And then Tank was just more or less like the cleanup guy. And so that's why he excelled in the run game, because that's something that he could do really, really well. And that to me is what we're seeing here in Seattle is now you're seeing him as a complete player and not necessarily just a backstop or a setup man for the guy on the other side.
So, you obviously study defenses across the league, all over the place. Anything schematically that is standing out to you about what Mike Macdonald's doing this year? And also, where do you kind of stack this Seahawks defense against any other that's going on in the NFL?
Yeah, this is it. Look, I am you know this, and I've talked to you multiple times about this. I'm a big Macdonald fan. I think what he did with the Ravens system and really cleaning it up, I think you're seeing kind of Mentor has exploded off of that. And then, the problems that they're having now is because of all that IQ drain that they've had in that program. I think they are by far the biggest nickel team. You mentioned that in the NFL, and they are able to do this playing in that. And that to me is the most impressive thing, because if going back to somebody that's in the same system, Mentor talked about it last year, because they were the flag bearers for light boxes, basically playing with 6 guys in the box all the time. Of like, it's actually really hard. You have to manufacture a lot of this. It comes down to the player personnel. And I think to me, what you're seeing is this is a team that's playing almost 90% nickel. And they're able to do this at a rate and be able to do some things, I think, that are unique, that are not necessarily other teams can do. And I think for me, that's really what it comes down to. They're also playing a high amount of zone and essentially 50% middle of the field open. Again, light box, middle of the field open. That is the most difficult defense to stop the run in, and they're able to do it. And a lot of it comes down to, I think, that front. And Macdonald, it has always been a guy, for whatever reason, he knows how to work that front and he knows how to do it. And so to me, it's nice and refreshing to see that this is a team that is really leaning into Macdonald's strengths, and it's showing up in that player personnel department as well, where they're getting guys that fit this defense and not just guys that we think, hey, this guy's a really good athlete, let's just plug and play.
How do you think, when they get all their guys back, how do you think this defense will compare potentially to Macdonald's Baltimore defense in his last season?
Oh, I think that this is a defense that can definitely grow into, a top level defense. I actually really like the personnel. I even think, Julian Love has consistently been one of the best safeties. If you think about deficiencies, where are they? Josh Jobe, we're halfway through the year. You really kind of are who you are. He's playing at a really high level. He's solidified himself as a really solid third corner. Okay, check. We don't need to worry about it. Kobe Bryant kind of really had a kind of a surge last year. He's now in his 3rd year. He's starting to really hit his stride. He's become a really good safety. I love the Ty Okada kid. I think he's from Montana
Yep.
State.
Yep.
I think he plays really well. He's a little limited in size, but he plays really well. So what you're seeing is it's not just the prime players. It's that you have depth. And as we know, like you mentioned, okay, well, what if everybody gets healthy? Well, as we know, the NFL is really a league of attrition. So it's really more or less like who you have behind those guys. This is a premium roster in a lot of these spots. I know it's funny, Reek Wolin, should we get rid of him? Should we move on from him? Look, he's kind of had a down year. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're playing a almost 2/3 zone. This is a man dominant. I think you can figure some things out, put him into the boundary 100% of the time. Just let him kind of be, I think a good example is like a JC Horn, like just let him be in the boundary all the time. And then just let him kind of be the man guy on the X and just kind of figure that out. But I think that's going to come with growth. He's being asked to play more zone than he ever has, just because of injuries and moving around and trying to do things like that. So I think that gets fixed. I'm a big believer in Macdonald being a teacher. And remember, teaching is coaching, coaching is teaching. It's just, we call it something different because it's a sport. So I think that this is a unit that can easily become a top level unit. I mean, it's pretty much already there. I think DVOA, they're number 2. Mm-hmm. So this, to me, this is there. Like, let's just put it all together, get everybody healthy. There's no reason why it can't stay in the top 5.
All right, Coach, before we let you go, switching sides, talking about the offense. I know you're a defense-focused guy, but I'm curious, I don't think anybody reasonably expected the Seahawks offense to be as explosive as it has been, or necessarily for Sam Darnold to be back in the MVP conversation, back here in Seattle. What are you seeing on the offensive side, and how is this working?
Yeah, I think the run game's there. I think that's the biggest look. The engine in this offensive system that they have under Kubiak is always going to be the run game. Your run game has to show up and it has to be consistent. And to me, when you look at it, I think they're number 2 in DVOA in running. Well, that's going to amplify your play action passing game. That's going to amplify and make things cleaner for a guy like Darnold, who has been in this system. I think that's the other thing too. He didn't switch systems. The language might be a little bit different. The coaching points and the coaching might be just a slightly different, but the family is there. You're in the same family. And so to me, I think that's been a big thing. Jackson Smith and Jigba, to me, is he's on the same level as like a St. Brown, where he's unguardable running across the middle of the field. And I think having Cooper Kupp, who is still adequate enough that can still do some of the things that we know he can as a possession receiver, that's what they're trying to do. Is we're going to set up play action. We're going to get guys in space. We're going to throw the ball with them on the run. And then they're just able to do that. And then we take our shots when it's time. If we can stay away, again, this is what the run game does for you. If we can stay away from the drop back passing game, then we'll be fine. Because then we're not having to necessarily, with Darnold, having to kind of pick apart defenses and really play, quote unquote, quarterback the whole game. And that's always been a struggle within this system, especially on the Shanahan side.
The Seahawks are going to play the Rams here in a few weeks. Who do you think has the advantage in that matchup?
I will say this. I think the Rams have the better offense. I think that Seattle has the better defense. Typically, the defense is going to kind of funnel everything into the deal. I think it's going to be really close, but I do think that Seattle has an opportunity this year. If the quarterback can not just throw some random, go on a random game where you throw 3 interceptions, if you can stay clean and you can stay moving, I think that's it. I think they can also take advantage. I'm still a little bit shocked at how well the Rams defense is playing this year. I don't know why. I'm just not necessarily there yet in terms of being a believer that this is a top 5 secondary in the NFL. I think that the line has a lot to do with it. I'm always regressed to the mean. So I'm just waiting for that to equalize. I still think that it's a top 10 to 15 defense, but I think Seattle has the advantage on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've been really impressed with their safety play, and Quentin Lake and playing some nickel, and Cam Kitchens, I think, has played really well. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on there. Coach Cody Alexander, make sure you check him out at matchquarters.com. Cody, thanks for joining, man.
Yes, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, that was Coach Cody Alexander. And you know what? There will never be a more fun transition than the one I'm about to do here, from a guy who literally writes books about defensive schematics in football, to somebody who has made a career of making people laugh as a stand-up comic. Dustin Nickerson, born in the Seattle area, has been has gone on the Tonight Show, the Late Late Show, and now his career is finally at its pinnacle as he joins Hawk Blogger Mornings. Dustin Nickerson, how are you doing this morning?
Good. I wasn't sure where you were going with the pinnacle thing. I was like, oh no, did I peak? Is this my moment? Because, they never tell you in comedy or any career when you're at your peak. But no, now that I'm on Hawk Blogger, that does check out. This was it. Sorry, Jimmy. Sorry, Kevin Hart. All my appearances on your dog. This is it. I'm on with Hawk Blogger.
For folks that don't know you, I've got to share. There was a couple clips that really made me laugh, as so many do. This is you talking about being faithful to your wife and why.
Very early on in our marriage, telling my wife that she never had to worry about me being unfaithful, no matter what. And she goes, well, how could you ever know that? And I go, honey, because I, for 40 years, have been a fan of the Seattle Mariners. And If I have not left them, then I will never leave you. You could never hurt me in the way they have hurt me. Never. Every season for my entire life, for me, has ended like Brokeback Mountain with me just screaming, I wish I knew how to quit you. I remember
Dustin, spoken like a true Seattle sports fan. Tell me the when that joke came to you. How did you make that connection?
Oh yeah, gosh, I don't even know. I think I just lived it for 40 years, and then I think my wife does. It did come from my wife just seeing the agony and seeing the commitment, and her, even whether she articulated it emotionally or verbally, just knowing like, man, I mean, if she realized it first, I could never. There's nothing I could do that would hurt him like this team does every year. And yet every spring you're like, this is the year. Even when it's not. In your heart it's not. You're like, oh. So yeah, I think I just lived that one for the last 20 years of her observing my faithful true to the blue, true to you, I think is how I coined it on Twitter.
It's so funny because I was just talking to a buddy the other day that was in a relationship, and I was like, you know what? I was joking with him that his girlfriend should put on a Mariners jersey, and he's like, there's no way she will ever do that. She's a tried and true St. Louis Cardinals fan. And I'm like, you know what? The most underrated attribute I think out there, like the green flag, is loyalty. And I'm not talking about loyalty to, I'm a Lakers fan and a Yankees fan and whatever always wins. I'm talking about loyalty to a team that you go through thick and thin with.
Yeah, I mean, everybody hates the Dodgers, right? Understandably so. But as someone who is Hollywood adjacent, which is what I always call myself, I always say I have 1 foot in the 1 foot on the red carpet and 1 foot in the school drop-off line. Like that's where I stand. Is the main reason that I hate the Dodgers is because, yes, of course, they have a million great Dodgers fans out there who are born and raised in LA, in the Valley, wherever it may be. But they also have their fan base as people that just moved to LA and bought a Dodgers hat. And they just have some dad in Milwaukee who's been crying over the Brewers for his entire life. And now he sees his daughter or his son move to go be a waiter / Uber driver / actor and just give up on the team altogether because they're, we could go to the Dodgers game. So yeah, I totally agree. Either, commit to a team or just don't commit to the sport at all. That being said, I actually really enjoy watching the games with my wife because she does it's like the Super Bowl party that even though she's not a big fan, she does love commercials. And so I'm like, all right, I mean, it's oddly good to watch the game with someone who doesn't care as much because it does put you a little bit of like, all right, well, maybe it's a Tuesday in July, Dustin. Let's not get too mad at Dan Wilson's decision right now. It's a Tuesday in July. Let's relax.
Yeah. How are you doing? I think everybody's coping in some way or another. How are you doing after this recent defeat?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give the Mariners credit. This is the latest in October they've ever hurt me. Which is a weird feeling. I mean, you may have seen me talk about this online and stuff, but I have a gig this weekend in Seattle at the Neptune, October 25th. And it never even, I'm a big sports fan, like not nitty gritty X's and O's the way that you are and that other commentators. I'm a fan. I wouldn't, I don't care. I don't dive deep into analysis. I'm not going to, I'm just here to be a fan. I don't even really want to meet the players. Like if you could be like, hey, do you want to go party in the clubhouse? I'm a fan. I belong in the stands. This is where I'm at. I also, if I want to get mad at Canzone one day, I don't want to be like, that's my buddy who I met.
I know the feeling.
I don't want. Yeah. So I like to remain objective in that term, in that way. But it never even crossed my brain that in 40 years of fandom that maybe there would be a conflict with the Seattle Mariners. I was like, okay, well, hopefully we'll get lucky and it'll be a Friday or a big noon kickoff for the Huskies. But I don't have, Huskies don't unite the area the way that the Mariners do. And then the Seahawks will play Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And it never even crossed my mind that there would be a conflict. And unfortunately, I was correct. Unfortunately.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you're gonna be at the Neptune in 3 days. Yes, the 25th. And tickets still available. So make sure folks go over there.
For the 3:30, the 7:30 sold out. So if you're looking for that matinee grandparent show, which a lot of my fans are parents, so they are all for it.
You know what, Dustin? That's part of what drew me to your comedy in the first place. Is I feel like I am your demographic, and you make Costco jokes, and as somebody who literally is like, there's a cultural phenomenon at Costco where I'm the angry white guy, middle-aged white guy who literally drifts with his cart around corners. Meanwhile, there's like other cultures that it's not a family affair. It's not even like nuclear family. It's like their cousins are there and they take up the entire aisle. It's like,
yeah, it's Disneyland.
You get me. So I loved your clip talking about you doing your show during the 15-inning game and coming off, not knowing what the result was.
That was great. Like? Because I was at the San Francisco Punchline, making fun of their sports teams, which is, I always joke, like, listen, 5% of my act is going to be about your sports teams in your city. And the remaining 95% of the act is going to be about being a 40-year-old dad. That's who I am. But I went on and I was in San Francisco and it was fun. It was cool. My son, he's actually goes to college at San Jose State. He's a distance runner there. And so he was visiting and I was like, okay, I'm probably going to miss the end of this game. I just knew there was a chance that and sure enough, I was going on a stage on the 7th inning. I think it was 2-1 when I went on the stage. And no. Rivas had gotten the hit. It was 2-2. It was 2-2 when I went on the stage. And then I got off, and the server guy, the guy who was working the door, he says, held up a sign. He's like, it's still tied. And I was like, it's still tied. Great. I can go watch the rest of the game. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that it would bleed into my second show. That show doesn't even start till 9:30. I don't go on until 10. And I was like, there's no way that this is still going. So, and in a lot of ways, it was a relief. Like, I don't think baseball is just meant to be watched that actively. It's too stressful.
It's not.
You're not supposed to watch every pitch of a baseball game. You're supposed to get there in the second inning, get a beer, grab a hot dog, kind of, okay, the 7, 8, 9 are hitting. Okay, let's do a lap. Let's, there's nothing exciting to see here. And, around the 7th, 8th inning, make a decision of whether or not you're staying the whole game. Which is based on whether or not you brought your kids, I think.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, I had a very specific way that I could watch these playoff games. And the least stressful version of it was that I just didn't watch it at all. And I was on stage doing something that was so engaging that I couldn't even think about the game because all due respect to my fellow Seahawks and Mariner fans, believe it or not, stand-up comedy does 100% engage your brain up there. I was like, you're checking the score. I'm like, I'm not. I have drunks to dance for.
Yeah, I actually have a question for you about that. Before I do that, I want to play another one of your clips. You talk about other fans. This was you in Houston.
Houston, you may not want to hear this, but every time I drive by that stadium downtown, I'm like, what a bunch of cheaters. You liars, you scam artists, you cheaters. Yeah. Oh, I'm not talking about the Astros. I'm talking about Joel Osteen's church. Should have hit a trash can for that curveball, huh? Houston, you may not want.
That's a guts. I mean, how much do you just relish those opportunities to go into other cities and just tease them a little bit?
Well, that's the fun thing. Like I was talking to my wife about this. You know, I'm a sports fan online, especially Twitter, where it's where I talk about almost exclusively. And which means you get trolls and just, you know, it's amazing the low IQ of the generic sports fan online. Yes. You're like, go Mariners, and they'll be like gay, and you're like, really? Okay, I mean that's but I have in my years of hopefully growing as a human, I don't really hate any fan base. I even Ducks and Yankees and I don't really. Maybe it's just because I tour all these cities and I got to play nice. But also they're just normal people who want the same thing that I do, which is to, you know, I really wanted the Mariners to win for my dad and my son. And I know the bunch of happy dads and sons in Toronto because of this. So, but I really do love the idea to try and get me, an outsider, to make jokes about their teams that they laugh at. That's the goal. That's where they can just go, dang it, that was a good joke. Like I did in San Francisco this last week. I had a joke where I a lot of time I'll like kind of just like roast the sports towns. And I did a joke about the Warriors, about how, you know, after 13 years together, the Splash Brothers broke up, you know, and they ended the way most friendships in California do. They both turn 30 and one of them moves to Texas, and they're like, okay, you got us. Or the Giants one I did was like, you guys have been 500 for 4 years. This is the closest San Francisco has to a middle class. And just that like reluctant laugh where they're like, he got us. And that's what I really aim for, other than just like, your team sucks. Like, all right. I mean, part of that's because I'm a Mariners fan. I don't got anything to really brag about. So I'm always punching up.
You know, we on this show, at least, will be there for any 49ers fans jokes you make. Although I would caution you there's violence in that fan base. So make sure that one hits okay.
Oh, yeah. No, the one I did, I don't know if you saw on TikTok, it's a little bit of a prop joke, but I recently broke my ankle. And that was the joke that I made on stage, as I know this is weird that a Seahawks fan is wearing 49ers paraphernalia, and by that I mean an ankle brace, and they're like, dang it. And that's what I aim for. I had one that I did in Eugene. I mean, as a Husky fan, to get Ducks laughing at that stuff, you're just you want it to come from a place of like love of sport, and that's what I have, is just a love of sport, you know. And I don't know, that's why, like, you know, when there was a sense of me that when those boos came down on Springer, or those cheers, I was like, oh no, guys, don't do this. We're not a successful enough franchise to weather this. We can't be bad guys. We can't be wrestling heels. We haven't earned that yet, you guys. Don't do this. And I don't know if you were feeling the same way, but I actually had muted the TV. Yeah. And the next day when he came up, I was like, oh, this is gone. There was a sense, I muted it because I'm like, I just don't want to hear the cheers. You know?
I very much relate. And yeah, I think some people doubled down on it online. That wasn't a great look. I know we only got you for a couple more minutes. Not only do you have a show coming up, you've got a great podcast. How you do it with your wife. Very
different than this. We don't talk about sports at all. It's called Don't Make Me Come Back There. And it's a funny podcast about family. So if you want something very different than Hawk Blogger, then but if
most people do.
Yeah.
So they're dying for an alternative. So I try to bring them some. So
yeah.
Dustin, I really appreciate you taking the time. You know, I know that folks are looking for ways to kind of heal after that pain, and I highly recommend that they check out your stuff because it's feel good. I think people refer to it as clean but mean, and I love that combination.
Oh yeah, I did get that before. Yeah, hopefully not too mean.
All right, awesome. Dustin Nickerson, make sure you check him out at the Neptune and check out his podcast. Thanks for coming on, Dustin.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having me.
All right, that was Dustin Nickerson. You know what? Like, you got to have some fun. You got to laugh, because if not, why the hell are we doing all this? We're obsessing about people throwing a ball, catching a ball, kicking a ball, you know, moving it 1 inch or not moving it 1 inch. It's all silliness at the end. I mean, I care about it more than any reasonable person should. We all do that are watching this show or participating in this show. And there's been enough pain in being a sports fan of the teams I cheer for that, man, you got to figure out some coping mechanisms. You got to figure out how to get back to center when things go the wrong way. And they did for the Mariners. Thankfully, the Seahawks are going in the other direction right now, which helps, and certainly helped for me, at least on Monday night. And now we get a little bit of a break. Gosh, if they had both lost and we had this bye week to just sit here in our misery, oh, that would have been awful. So that probably contributed to the amount of stress I felt about the way the Seahawks were trying every single way to blow that game in the second half, and often in the first half, and still managed to come out on top. So, you know, I'm pretty bullish on where things are going with the Seahawks. I've been very hard on them in my post Monday night evaluation, and I don't think that will change. But that conversation with Cody, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, because honestly, I hadn't really thought through the nickel and dime transition that we're probably going to see once Devon Witherspoon and Julian Love come back after the bye. But the concept of Nick Emmanwori, Devon Witherspoon, both playing at the same time and both playing inside, while you've got two boundary corners who you assume are going to be Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe. But maybe if Reek Woolen gets moved, you know, maybe that's somebody else. At this point, I think that's a reason why they might keep Tariq Woolen, right? Like, part of the logic of, hey, they might move on was when Witherspoon comes back, there might not be a spot for Tariq Woolen, because Devon Witherspoon would be the little nickel. If he's in little nickel, they might, if there was to talk for a while that Darian Kendrick might be the little nickel, and now they're not even playing little nickel. Nick Emmanwori already is the nickel, and he's kind of out there all the time. When they're in nickel, it's been Devon Witherspoon and Josh Jobe that have been the boundary corners. That would imply that Reek Woolen wouldn't play at all. But now, if they're going to be playing a lot of dime, then you have a spot for Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe and Devon Witherspoon and Nick Emmanwori and Kobe Bryant and Julian Love. And I agree with Cody Alexander that those are part of your best 11. That's going to mean less Drake Thomas, which also is something that, I mean, Drake Thomas, I thought, had a really nice game. This past two games have been, I think, really good games. And for him to be a guy that you're only playing when you need to, that's good situation. And you've got Tyrese Knight behind him. You basically have Ernest Jones out there as your only linebacker when they're in dime. It's a fascinating evolution that I think we're probably going to see. And the fact of the matter is, the NFL hasn't seen it yet, because they've only played 4 snaps together all year. So you're going to have them go into Washington after the bye and show people something that hasn't been on film, which I love. And they get this entire bye week plus next week to self-scout, evaluate, game plan. They get to watch Washington play this week. We don't know what Jaden Daniels' situation is. And I tweeted last night, Vegas Insider still has what is apparently the old odds for that game. against Washington. They had Washington as 5.5-point favorites. I was like, what is going on? Every book was at like 5 or 5.5 points. And I'm like, what am I missing here? How are the Seahawks their biggest underdog they've been all year? The biggest underdog the Seahawks have been all season was 3.5-point road dogs to the Steelers. They won that game pretty convincingly. They haven't been underdogs since, by the way. Vegas and the odds have been favoring the Seahawks in all these games. And that doesn't mean that they've won all those games, right? They lost to the Bucks, but they have been favored in all of these games. So it turns out that those were old odds and that the Seahawks, I think, are favored between 2.5 and 3.5, something like that. And I think we'll find out more what happens with Jaden Daniels, which will 100% massively affect those odds. I see there's a super chat here. Let me get to that. Joey Walker says, I'm a youth coach and came across Cody's video on how to defend the wing T offense. We shut out the other team and the kids thought I was a genius. Thanks, coach. I will make sure Cody hears about that. I love it. That's awesome. Excuse me. I've been feeling that sneeze coming for like a half an hour, ready to mute, and it just surprised me. It got me, folks. So sorry for those listening, but couldn't control it. There's a couple things. There's one of the things I wanted to talk about before I wrap up today. Before I do that, I want to make sure you head over to SimplySeattle.com. SimplySeattle.com for all your Seattle sports gear. Code HawkBlogger15 still works for 15% off, whether it's Seahawks gear, Mariners gear, Huskies, Kraken, Storm, whatever it is you love from Seattle sports. You can get 15% off at SimplySeattle.com using code HawkBlogger15. You can also go to JKBoots.com and JKBoots.com/HawkBlogger. Get the best boots you will ever own. I'm telling you, you are going to love these boots. Your feet are going to feel amazing. You're going to look great. And you can get a great deal on these. Seattle, a Washington-based company over in Spokane, family-owned. We also have been supporting the Wildland Firefighters Foundation to help protect Northwest forests from fire. So make sure you take advantage at jkboots.com/hawkblogger. And of course, the Sleeper app. Make sure you download this. Get all your fantasy sports news, get your real-time stats, visualization, talk with your buddies. And for a limited time, no deposit required, and you still can get $20 just for signing up. Also, if you use promo code HAWKS, you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right. So last topic I had for you guys is Pro Football Focus, PFF, and their grades. This is a small thing. It's become a thing where people are dunking on PFF for their grades. I get it. I'm not here to actually I don't think PFF grades are the end all be all. People are like, we should stop sharing them, stop tweeting them out. They're meaningless. I don't think they're meaningless. This part of this comes from my tech background. Part of it just comes from the way my mind works, but they've got a grading system. They have made subjective decisions on how to value different levels of performance from different players in different positions. The fact that for a quarterback, they heavily weight big time throws as like a big positive, and they strongly negatively weight turnover worthy plays. Like those are killers for their grading system. That's a choice. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just a choice. It's their approach. And I don't really agree with the big time throw rate part of it, because I think a lot of times big time throws, which for folks that don't know, by their definition are, downfield throws in tight windows, highly accurate. I think those are great, but I actually value quarterbacks that make on-time, smart throws to the correct player in their progressions. Like, I care about that a lot more. In fact, I've seen a lot of quarterbacks have these high percentage of big-time throws, because they're fitting it into tight windows all the time. That's not a way to live. A lot of times you'll see a correlation between a guy that has a good big time throw rate and has a high turnover worthy play rate, because guess what? You're playing on a razor's edge. So I see that differently than them. I understand that I see it differently than them. It doesn't bother me. It just doesn't bother me. And then this other aspect of it is there are certain positions that I think they do a better job of than others. And for example, I think a lot of folks, Jeff Simmons, if you're listening, Jeff, I love you. Rob Staten, if you're listening, I love you too. These guys hate PFF grades. They trigger them so much. Leonard Williams had a 60 grade. What are you talking about? I think that's a fine perspective that the Leonard Williams grades aren't reflective. I will say that I think their defensive tackle grades are one of the ones that for me are a little bit more suspect. It doesn't mean that everything that they do is terrible. And I also would say that it depends on whether you're talking about a single game or a season. So, for example, I will look right now at edge players, just edge player grades for the whole season. I'm going to read you the top 10 grades for edge players. Number 1, Micah Parsons. Number 2, Aiden Hutchinson. Number 3, Myles Garrett. Number 4, Will Anderson. Number 5, Nick Herbig. That's kind of an interesting one. I think that's cool. Maybe it's totally wrong that he's in the same category. But for me, what that does as an analyst of football and somebody who cares about this stuff is like, oh, Nick Herbig's up there with Will Anderson and Myles Garrett. I got to dig in. Like, do I agree? Let me watch more of his film. That doesn't mean that I think he is that like they are correct. It's a signal. Jared Verse is 6th. Leatu Latu for the Colts is 7th. Again, I'm curious about that. Chase Young, who's only played 2 games, is 8th. Alex Wright. Who the hell is Alex Wright? I don't know. He plays for the Browns. He's 9. And then you got Trey Hendrickson and Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa. You got a lot of players that is anyone going to scratch their head that Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, and Myles Garrett and Will Anderson are the top 4 edge rushers? No. So it's not like this grading system is absolutely terrible, but it's got some quirks. Now, if I go and I say, well, I don't want to look at edge rushers, I want to look at defensive interior players, the number 1 graded player is Malik Collins for Cleveland. That's ridiculous. I know that. I think Malik Collins is playing well this year. There's no way Malik Collins is the best defensive tackle in the NFL. There is zero chance. There's zero chance. Derek Brown is 2nd. Now, Derek Brown is very good. Cam Hayward's 3rd. Teair Tart is 4th. Do I think Teair Tart is the 4th best defensive interior player in the NFL? No. Jeffrey Simmons is 5th. Poona Ford is 6th. Tim Settle for Houston is 7th. Ed Oliver's 8th. Quinton Williams 9th. Daron Payne is 10th. Dexter Lawrence is 11th. Does that mean that I automatically get pissed off? Dexter Lawrence is better than Malik Collins. This is all bullshit. No, who cares? Like, who cares? What this does is, for me, I would have no other good way I can't watch every single player. The amount of manpower it takes to watch every single play of every single player, grade it positively or negatively, track whether, like, what position they were playing, track whether they missed a tackle, track it from a pass rush perspective, from a run defense perspective, from a coverage perspective. Like, that is a massive undertaking. And so this is a cheat code for me to be able to go in and say, well, why? What's happening there? And now there's other positions where, like, I think defensive interior is one of the positions where there's some question marks. If I go back to 2024 to last year and I say, okay, over the course of the whole season, who were their top interior defensive linemen? I'm curious. Maybe it will show that over the course of the season makes sense. Well, number 1 last year was Chris Jones. Number 2 was Cam Hayward. 3 was Dexter Lawrence. 4 was Leonard Williams. They don't have an anti-Leonard Williams point of view. I would also say that Leonard Williams gives them a very hard time because Leonard Williams is not just an interior defensive lineman. They have played him at 9 technique all the way outside the tackle. So he's all over the line, and they're asking him to do things where he's eating up double teams. Whether they value that in their grading system or not, I don't know. I don't feel insecure about my Leonard Williams analysis. Leonard Williams is unbelievably good. He is defensive player of the year level good. Now, I like it when the grades match it. I don't care when they don't, because I'm secure enough in my perspective on my analysis of Leonard Williams. But, I'll give you an opposite one where there's going to be people that are going to say, like, this is awesome. And I'm going to say it doesn't actually matter as much as you think. You can go and look at the grades for Nick Emmanwori. And I'm actually looking. He was the number 1 graded. Where is he? He's not showing up. He is not showing up. Let's see. Nick Emmanwori was the highest graded safety in the NFL going into this last game. Do I think Nick Emmanwori is the best safety in the NFL? No way. No way. Now, it's interesting. He's not showing up here, and I'm guessing maybe they have changed they've made him a cornerback now. Interesting. Okay, so they've switched his position, which is probably more accurate anyway. But now Nick Emmanwori is the 6th highest graded cornerback in the NFL. I don't think Nick Emmanwori is probably the 6th best quarterback in the NFL, but I love seeing him up there. I do enjoy that. And it's cool to see that they're seeing enough positive plays for him, not only as an overall defender, but as a run defender, as a pass rusher, and as a coverage player. I think that's cool. I'll just say this. My enjoyment of NFL football has been enhanced by the existence of PFF. Not because it's told me what to think, but because there is such a deep well of information about the sport that I love and the players that I won't have time to analyze the way that they do. So I think all this dunking, to me, almost all of it comes from people that have not spent the time digging in to understand how the grading goes, have a conversation with folks over there about how it works, to also separate out whether or not it's meant to be the end all be all. To be like saying that yards per carry is the only way to rank a running back. I mean, that's stupid. Like, it is one piece of information. Now, you're going to wonder why I'm going on this rant. I'm going on this rant just because it's the end of the show. I've been observing this going on with all the people piling on, Nick Wright and JJ Watt and Chris Long and all that. Fine. Like, they're entitled to their opinions. I am the guy that will stand up in an unpopular situation and say something different. And this happens to be one of those times. Also, guess who's joining the show tomorrow? Trevor Sikkema of PFF will be with me tomorrow morning at, if I'm correct, 9 a.m. Because you know what? The bye week might be happening, but I'm not taking the time off. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Trevor Sikkema, great college scout and draft analyst, also is on the PFF pod. He will be with me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We will have a real Hawk Talk tomorrow night, not tonight, tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Evan Hill, Jeff Simmons, and I will do it at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Then I will have Mike Sando. I might bring in Dave Bowling again. We might get the boys together Friday morning. So we got a lot of great stuff coming for you during the bye week. I'm also excited. Got some guys coming in next week. It's looking like Matt Harmon of Reception Perception will be coming on. Can't wait to talk to him next week about JSN, about Torrey Horton, about Sam Darnold, about Nick Emmanwori, about all those guys. So a lot of great guests coming. And if you wouldn't mind, I would really appreciate taking the time to give the show a like, subscribe to the channel, follow me on TikTok, on Instagram, all the places. And really importantly, give us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. All these things help grow the show, grow the community, and help me bring in guests. People want to know, like, how many people am I going to see this, and the fact that we have millions, literally millions of you watching some piece of content from this channel every month is incredibly humbling and mind-boggling, and I wonder a little bit if you guys are all okay. But I love you for it. I'm very grateful. Time is the absolute most valuable commodity. There's nothing that comes close to your time in terms of value, and the fact that you spend it with me, with the boys, with Dana, with our guests, I am super grateful for it, and I enjoy, being able to do this with all of you. So let's keep it going. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'm really messed up on the days with the Monday Night Football and the bye week. I just don't know what's going on. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.